In early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic struck the world and continues to have a severe impact on our lives here in South Africa. In 2021, a year into the global pandemic, we locate ourselves in Johannesburg at the GALA Queer Archive and Library to take a moment to reflect on the various challenges we continue to face as a community and as an organization. As a queer archive, we focus on preserving and recording LGBTIQ stories and histories to address the historical and current erasure of queer experiences and identities in society. Due to the pandemic, we found ourselves in a position that required us to have a shift in focus in order to respond to the immediate needs experienced by LGBTIQ people that no longer had access to food or basic needs. While all people were affected by the pandemic and lockdown measures, we realized that those in already marginalized social positions faced even greater difficulties. After implementing some relief initiatives, we quickly learned about the countless challenges and complexities involved in relief work, and therefore decided to reflect and to think critically about the need for relief in LGBTIQ communities during the pandemic and beyond. In collaboration with the Wits Centre for Diversity Studies, we undertook a project called Relief on the Edge, which was aimed at providing a space of reflection for queer community activists and civil society organizations. As part of this project, we convened discussions between queer activists who found themselves in the position of providing relief to LGBTIQ people in need before and during the pandemic. This discussion, facilitated by Anzio Jacobs, queer activist and director of an NGO called Scope, includes Roche, Kester, and Zsa-Zsa, activists from organizations serving the needs of marginalized communities in the country. The purpose of this conversation was to reflect on what it means to provide relief to transgender women and members of the LGBTIQ community affected by hate crimes, and what can be done to strengthen this work moving forward.
My name is Zsa-Zsa, and I'm the founding director of an organization called Transpower Care Centre, at least. I founded it in 2017, and the reason for that is because I saw a need for an organization that was trans led for the trans community, because there was a lack of knowledge with other organizations that I've been working with at that time. The work that I do is more specifically for transgender people holistically as well.
So I'm Roche and I work for an organization called Out LGBTI Wellbeing. I work as the hate crime manager there, ensuring that there's a measure of escalation for the crimes. But we also do advocacy and policy work as well. We have safe spaces, particularly for LGBTQ women. And then we also offer psychosocial support and advice through our legal clinic for cases of discrimination. So that's the scope of the work.
Okay. So, a question for both of you. What does relief mean in the context of the communities that you serve? What does that look like?
I think in the South African context, most people are in need of relief. So I feel like there's often not enough support to ensure that people have a measure of being comfortable, that they have a measure of being safe, or that they have dignity. With the LGBTI community, I think relief means the same thing in that sense, but then also amplified by different issues like access, amplified by administrative and structural violence. I'm just thinking about something like gender-based violence, for instance. If a woman is let's say a heterosexual woman is cohabitating with a abusive partner, there is a shelter for that woman to go to. But like with LGBTI people, if you are in a domestic violence or intimate partner violence situation, there's not even a shelter for you to go to, right? And in a time when, let's say COVID, for instance, where you don't have a place to go, what choices do you have?
Because of our laws, people feel that as a heteronormative person, I have more rights than I do as the LGBTI community. And for us as our community, we know that these rights apply to us, but the fear, the stigma and discrimination that we've been through as our community withholds us, or it holds us back from actually pursuing the support and the help that we need. There's the fear that has been installed in our community about, if I do this, I won't get what I need. Somebody that I was giving assistance to went to a hospital, and the nurse blatantly told them, you're a woman, you identified as a woman in your ID, and so therefore I will call you as she. And so this person was adamant that they will disrespect this person, no matter what this person said to them. So already that has instilled fear and a huge dysphoria in this person. What has COVID-19 done for us as an LGBTI community? It's just highlighted the poverty, the struggles of our community. Our trans people are suffering to an extreme because of lack of education, lack of access to health, lack of everything, And I mean, like, if it wasn't for some other organizations that I do collaborative work with, I think there would have been a lot of people dying out there in our community.
A lot of our people work in the informal sector because of workplace discrimination. When you walk into a business, people look at you in terms of whatever your expression is, right? Whether you are trans-identifying, non-binary, people just... employment in general is a queer problem. Upskilling, skills development, right? Now you have people who have created economy for themselves in the informal sector, but this individual who is a hairdresser in a salon or at their home had been completely... that was a service that was not available at all. So now what does this person do? Because that's their means of income, given that we don't have shelters in anywhere in South Africa except for Cape Town for LGBTI people. So now we have to create mechanisms of emergency accommodation, for instance, right? But I mean, that's also a very current solution. What happens long term to that person? Where would they go after that? You can't create an expectation of then housing someone who's in distress for 2 weeks and then saying, well, after that, So it's kind of negotiating what is possible in an emergency sense, So is the person okay now? Will they be safe now? It's not necessarily always sustainable, or it's not always necessarily something that is a long-term solution for everybody, but it's sometimes you just have to look at the immediate needs and see what you can do,
Yeah.
Whether that funding has been available or not, we've come together as communities and we've been offering relief as we see relief and within our means. What challenges have there been in implementing that relief work? When you've been witnessing in the sector, been part of the relief work, where are major gaps?
You help one, and because of word of mouth in our community, the next day there's 4. And it doubles and it doubles, and your relief funding is not enough for everybody.
We had a whole travel budget for 2020. This was for government engagements, traveling to different places, because we do work, legislative work all over the country. But now I'm not traveling. Everything is online. What happens to that travel money? How are we going to spend it? Can we use it for relief instead, So those are the ways that we've kind of had to then gear and shift the focus to what is needed in the community.
But if we were to go down that list and name the things that are most pressing, not only in the context of COVID, but what do we really need that we're not getting out of that funding?
We need protection. I think even as an LGBTI community, we've lost like 9 people in 3 months. That already in itself speaks volumes about the hatred towards our community.
We've noticed that if people show up at court, heavier sentences are being passed.
People
But
don't
how
get
do you
bail.
justify, when do we start talking about the fact that having bodies in the court means that we have to think about people need transport to get to the court, but when they get to the court, they are hungry when they get there because they are unemployed. And we forget that that forms part of the reporting that goes back to the funders that limit the type of work that can be done. We've seen in our own communities how community-based activists take money out of their pockets to show up at the courts. Why is that not part of the type of relief that we're doing?
Hi guys, my name is Anzio Jacobs, Executive Director of GALA LGBTI. We are here at Pambridge Court for the case of Simon Mojalefa Tswitswi Mokoena versus the state. Simon brutally murdered Bonang Khailai and almost killed Chipa. So we're here for the start of the trial. However, it has been postponed.
The last 2 months, we haven't had funding for my program at all. So it's working on, it's literally nothing, you know, and it's been interesting because before these 2 months, we were funding court support, you know. We would speak to people in various communities to say, show up, here's transport money. You know, they have to fill in a register, whatever. In this time that, in these 2 months that people have been dying, we haven't been able to do any of that. Even that kind of relief means a lot, not just for the individual that has passed away, but the community as a whole. If someone doesn't get bail, that means the precedent is set. Wherever we go, nobody's going to get bail, not on our watch. But we need people to be mobilized to be able to do that work. And how do you do that? By that kind of funding.
So for us, it really seems like we're being taken for a ride and our lives don't matter. Because this case has been postponed for more than 5 times now. So we don't know if this is just a ploy to get us to be demotivated or what. Resources are being used to come here every day, yet we don't get progress.
Why do we have to go and fight for our rights when it's constitutionally is our right? Somebody has been violated in our community. Yes, I will go and I'll fight and I'll stand and I'll protest with the family. But should my presence really make a difference on a sentence? Already in itself, it speaks volumes about heteronormativity in our society and how the homosexual community gets treated. I have lived experience of what we need as transgender people. I have lived experience of what it means to be suicidal, what it means not to get what I need, not want, what I need as a transgender woman, you know? So these are the kinds of things that we need to look into and hold our government accountable.
But I think we've been doing government's work, you know? NGOs have been doing government's work. Civil society was born from the need that we don't have these services. And so we've taken the reins from this, right? But the models that exist are also very colonial. You know, we're going to give you this money. These are the prescriptions for this money. This is how you have to report. And sometimes you feel as an organization that you have to almost, you know, smaller yourself, like, you know, shrink so that you can appeal to the whims of funders when you also just want to tell them in the same way, like, let me do with this money what I need to do for my people and not what you dictate. And so my question is also just about structures in general, you know, who are we serving? Who is the person that is still dominant? Who holds all the access, you know? And then we have to think about how this trickles down in terms of relief. Funding proposals, the way that they are done. You know, if I'm going to speak to the kind of work, and I'm thinking about an organization like mine that it's a legacy organization. We've been around for years and years and years. We've done the work. We've ran We've had sub-grantees, we've had partnerships, we've had collaborations, you know. But in this current view, when I fill in a funding application, I fill it in based on legacy. But can I not fill it in on the current needs right now? Because the needs are shifting. They're changing all the time. I can't anticipate everything that's going to be happening. So now I have my grant, but then something happens and I can't spend on what is happening because I've already contracted myself to certain things that now seem null and void.
If we lead on our community's behalf without heterosexual people telling us how to live our lives and what to do for our community.
This makes me think of like layered relief, you know, like the relief needs to be as intersectional as the person. You know, I'm feeling like as much as you can give someone food now, how are you going to sustain that person beyond that meal? I always think about equity in employment and economic empowerment and what that means. Like, you know, what does skills development look like? What does access to the job market look like? And I feel like we need to ensure people have food on their tables, you know. And I think if someone had to give me a blank check, you now dan wil ek in Afrikaans sien ek kom ons geld in Afrikaans I'm like dan wil ek sommer 'n queer army begin. Ons is 'n hele besigheid. We're a whole business of just queer people doing queer things, you know what I mean? But I feel like you need to ensure that people are able to feed themselves. You need to ensure that individuals are empowered enough to not be dependent on other people, because that creates a different kind of measure of safety as well.
We've never been funded for those kinds of things. No fund has ever given us money to say empower them. Let them have an education. What do you want to become? Managerial? No problem.
It's like they're funding our dependence on the funding sector.
Agenda